What if what you call coincidence is, in fact, a silent calling from reality, an invisible stitching between what you feel and what happens? You may have noticed, certain words arrive at the exact moment a thought emerges. Certain encounters seem written by an unseen intelligence. Places, numbers, sensations. Everything seems to align, as if the outer world were merely a reflection of something internal, ancient, pulsing beneath the veil of logic. These moments, which many call synchronicities, are not noise from randomness. They are mirrors, echoes, vibrational maps that emerge when the soul begins to remember who it is. There is no effort, there is no rational explanation. There is a knowing that touches, and it touches from within, as if something in you had sent out a signal, and the universe was silently responding. But be warned, synchronicities are not rewards. They are not signs to achieve something. They are activations. Portals that open when your vibration aligns with a forgotten truth. They do not come to guide the ego, but to dissolve the limits between what you think you are and what you truly are. And maybe, at this very moment, as you hear these words, you are inside one of them. Because certain messages are not found. They find you. Perhaps you've spent years feeling that something was out of place, but without knowing exactly what. As if life happened around you, but not within you. As if events repeated themselves, emotions returned, and nothing could break the invisible cycle that time insists on stitching together. You wake up, fulfill your roles, smile at the right moments. But something is missing. A part of you watches everything from afar, a silent lucidity that fits no explanation of the world. And the strangest thing is that, amid this absence, inexplicable moments arise. A number that shows up again, a face you dreamed of the night before. A sentence, overheard by chance, that answers a question you hadn't even voiced. Everything seems orchestrated, yet with no visible conductor. Everything seems to speak to you, though no one is saying anything. For a long time you may have ignored these signs, thinking it was just imagination, coincidence, a tired mind searching for patterns. After all, that's what you were taught, that reality is a machine, cold, objective, separate from you. That chance rules. That only what can be measured is real. That emotions, intuitions, and symbols are deviations, not messages. But what if that's all a lie? What if life isn't a machine, but a mirror? A mirror that doesn't show your face, but your vibration. If this is true, and deep down, something in you always felt it is, then nothing is disconnected. No scene, no word, no silence. And synchronicities would be how reality responds to your frequency, like one instrument resonating with another. You don't need to understand this with your mind. The mind is too small to decipher what was written by the soul, but you can feel it. Feel when something vibrates differently, when time slows down, when a detail of the world seems to see you. These moments are not interference, they are revelations, fragments of a language that predates words, as if the universe were not external, but internal. As if you were walking inside yourself all along, and only now are beginning to notice the reflections. This is where the true spiritual journey begins, when you stop searching for signs outside and begin to remember that the signs are you. But this remembrance hurts. It hurts because everything you were conditioned to believe begins to collapse. It hurts because it requires you to let go of control, logic, old agreements. It hurts because it reveals that your pain, your losses, your cycles, all of that was also part of a symbolic language. Not to punish you, but to wake you up. The system we live in fears this awakening. It survives through forgetfulness. It wants you to believe you are alone, that reality is indifferent, that everything is random. Because if you remember, if you truly remember, that each synchronicity is a vibrational mirror, then the game changes. The matrix dissolves. You begin to live in another time, a spiraling time, where past, present, and future overlap in symbolic layers, where everything you emit returns, where the invisible manifests, where the ancient soul that lives within you can finally guide the body. It is a silent new beginning. You still walk the same streets, pass by the same people, but something has changed. Not outside, inside. The vibration has changed. And when the vibration changes, reality responds. It always has. You had just forgotten. Now the signs are no longer noise. They are answers. They are whispers coming from the center of being. And maybe, just maybe, your soul has waited lifetimes for this very moment of remembrance. Not everything that moves, moves with feet. Not everything that arrives comes from outside. There are encounters that do not begin. They simply remember to happen. It is like this with synchronicities. They are not caused, they are allowed. When Thoth wrote the eternal principles of creation, he did not hide them in formulas. He hid them in symbols, because he knew what is eternal cannot be explained. It can only be remembered. And one of the most veiled, most powerful, most transformative symbols is that of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. It is not a metaphor. It is a living law. A vibrational architecture that structures reality. Everything you see, hear, touch, feel, everything is responding to your most intimate frequency. Every thought, every forgotten sensation, every veiled emotion, everything pulses in the field, and the field does not judge. It simply reflects. That is why synchronicities are not magical. They are precise. They are not miracles. They are energetic coherence. They are the moment when your inner vibration aligns with the vibration of an answer, and the world manifests it, not as a reward, but as a mirror. That is why they feel so personal, because they are. No one else can decode what that phrase, that person, that number means to you, because no one else emits what you emit. The language of the universe is resonance, and synchronicities are like vibrational words written in the air, read through feeling. But there is a detail that few perceive. Synchronicities do not happen only to guide. Sometimes they test. Sometimes they reveal a repeated cycle that needs to be seen. Sometimes they show the broken mirror, because everything that vibrates responds, even that which is misaligned. So when something strange repeats, when a pattern returns, when coincidences seem confusing, maybe the field is showing you what you need to release. You are not being guided outward. You are being summoned inward. Thoth spoke of the all in the everything and the everything in the all, words that only make sense when lived, not when explained. It is in this principle that synchronicities are revealed, because the whole that lives within you recognizes the whole that vibrates outside you. And for moments, the veils touch. It is as if reality opened its eyes and saw you, not as a body, but as a frequency. And if you look back, something awakens. You begin to live as a conscious observer inside a multidimensional mirror. A mirror that not only reflects, but responds. And in that response, there are messages, there are paths, there are activations. But they are not always clear, because the language of the spirit is not linear. It is symbolic. It reveals itself through archetypes, and each archetype is a fragment of you in another layer of time, an echo of your essence, dancing on the edges of the invisible. That is why certain symbols have always called to you, certain books, certain names, certain sounds, because they carry a vibration that speaks to parts of you the mind has forgotten, but the spirit never abandoned. Perhaps then, the emergence of these synchronicities is not the beginning of anything. Perhaps it is the return of an ancient link, a bridge between times, a memory of yours finding its way home. And if you follow this thread, not with haste, not with anxiety, but with presence, it leads you to a place that is not in space. It is in feeling. It is in the deep now, where the mind does not interfere and the soul leads. This is the field of remembrance, and in this field, the invisible manifests as a vibrational response, as if reality itself were saying, "Yes, I hear you, because you created me." It is not arrogance, it is forgotten wisdom. you are not in a universe that reacts. You are in a universe that mirrors, and everything that aligns appears. Everything that disintegrates disappears. Everything that vibrates resonates. Synchronicities are not the secret. They are the key, and you are the lock that must be opened from within. It is in the moments when everything seems to collapse that the vibrational field reveals itself most clearly, when the noise ceases, not by choice, but by exhaustion. When the mind can no longer sustain the stories, and the body no longer responds to the promises of the external world. There is a silent surrender, a necessary collapse, a void that does not ask for answers. It asks for presence. It is there, in this liminal space between the end of a cycle and the birth of the invisible, that synchronicities begin to multiply. Not as signs that everything will work out, but as reminders that nothing is outside the axis of consciousness. It is on this broken ground that the spirit begins to speak louder, because the ego can no longer pretend to be in control. Perhaps you have felt this. Life disorganized on the outside, but a sequence of symbols on the inside, vivid dreams, people who appear, objects that reappear, words that repeat. It is not confusion, it is activation. It is as if the field were redesigning your reality based on the new frequency born from your pain, because pain, when accepted, purifies. It dissolves fragile identities, inherited expectations, plans that no longer resonate with who you really are. And what remains is space. Space for the invisible to act. Synchronicities in this context are not spiritual ornaments. They are rituals of the invisible. They are silent ways of reorganizing your vibration according to what you are ready to remember. And this remembrance sometimes requires everything to fall apart. The old mirrors must break so that you can recognize the new reflection. And what is this reflection? It is you. Not the conditioned, fragmented you, trained to survive, but the you that has always been present behind all the layers. The you that vibrates beyond linear time. The you that observes. When this observer awakens, reality begins to respond differently. The cycles do not disappear, but their rhythm changes. Encounters gain another density. Time spirals. And you begin to realize that everything that happens is happening for you, for your expansion, for your remembrance. But be warned, this does not mean that the pain disappears. It means it gains context. It means you can go through it without getting lost. Because now there are signs, now there are mirrors, now there are silent answers, and none of them come from the mind. They all come from vibration. And perhaps at this very moment as you hear this, you are inside one of these activations. Perhaps this video is not just content. Perhaps it is an answer, a reflection, a calling that your soul emitted, and the universe echoed back in the form of these words. Because when you begin to observe life as a symbolic field, everything transforms. The ordinary becomes ritual, chance becomes language, silence becomes response. And you stop chasing meaning to start feeling the meaning that has always been vibrating in you. This is the true awakening. It is not about changing reality. It is about changing the way you vibrate within it. And when that happens, it changes as a consequence. If this is resonating with something inside you, if these words seem to come from a place you cannot name, but that you know, perhaps it is time to anchor this field, to create a vibrational link that reverberates beyond this moment. So, if you feel it's your time, like this video, not as an automatic gesture, but as an energetic seal, a silent, I receive, and in the comments write, I remember what the silence revealed. This phrase is not just a sentence, it is a code, a vibrational anchor that can activate dormant memories in you and in those who read it later. Because sometimes a simple act of presence echoes more than 1,000 explanations. You were taught to see time as a line, beginning, middle, and end. A path that only moves forward, that takes you from the past to the future, as if the now were just a bridge between two extremes. But what if that is just a model, and not the truth? What if time is not a line, but a spiral? If it is a spiral, it does not pass. It returns. It folds over itself. It repeats the movement, but with a new frequency. It brings back the same experiences, the same faces, the same challenges, but on another layer. Deeper, more symbolic, closer to remembrance. That is why certain themes return, certain pains reappear, certain words, people, signs. It is not punishment. It is an invitation. It is time spiraling, offering you a new chance to observe with a different presence. Because what you observe vibrates, and what you vibrate creates. At this point, it is important to remember, you are not just someone walking through time. You are the very field that time passes through. And in this field, every thought is a trace. Every emotion is a frequency. Every choice is an opening or a closing. And the universe, which is not external, but resonant, responds to all of this in symbols. You begin to notice the pattern. You begin to feel that you are being mirrored all the time. A phrase on the radio, an image on the street, a dream that seems more real than the day. And then, at some point in your silence, the question arises, who is creating this? The answer does not come with words, it comes with presence. Because consciousness is not passive. It shapes, it directs, it collapses possibilities and manifests realities, not with effort, but with vibrational coherence. This is not mentalism, it is remembrance. Thoth knew. He wrote, "The universe is mental, not in the sense of rationality, but of creative consciousness. The world is mind, and the mind, when aligned with spirit, becomes a temple. And when the temple is silent, reality speaks. And what does it say? It says what you are ready to hear. Not before, never before." That is why synchronicities do not obey chronological time. They obey vibrational time. They arise when you collapse the inner noise, when your presence attunes to what needs to be revealed. You have likely felt this. When you stop searching, the answer appears. When you let go, everything aligns. When you no longer expect, the sign comes. Not because you gave up, but because you left control and entered the flow, into spiral time, into the deep now. This now is not a moment. It is a state. And in this state you do not observe the world. You create the world you observe. And that is why the symbols reorganize. That is why reality changes. Because the vibration changed. Here lies the secret that few dare to hold. The universe does not listen to requests. It responds to the frequency you emit. And this frequency is not in words, but in the coherence between what you feel, think, and vibrate. When there is misalignment, the field responds with confusion. When there is coherence, the field responds with synchronicity. Not as a reward, but as a mirror. And then you realize you no longer need to interpret the signs. You need to inhabit them. Each synchronicity is a fold in time, a gap where the invisible manifests, where reality ceases to be scenery and becomes language. And you cease to be a character, to become presence. Spiral time does not require you to run. It requires you to feel, to observe without judgment, to become so intimate with your vibration that you recognize when it resonates in the world, even in the simplest things. And that is how you begin to live on two planes at once. The visible plane, where everything seems normal, and the symbolic plane, where everything is speaking to you. The question now is no longer what is happening, but who am I being while this happens? Because the field does not respond to appearance. It responds to the observer you choose to be. And maybe, without realizing it, you are already observing the world with spiral eyes. With eyes that remember. With eyes that do not seek meaning but recognize the sacred hidden in the simple. No effort is needed. The field of synchronicity does not respond to force. It responds to listening. And listening, in this context, does not mean hearing with the ears. It means quieting the internal noise until the invisible begins to speak. The modern mind has learned to search, to analyze, to chase after signs as if they were on the outside. But what truly vibrates emerges when you stop, when you no longer try to reach, when you simply open. There is a state where signs reveal themselves on their own, like flowers blooming without being touched, as if they were just waiting for a clear gaze, for a receptive field, for an observer who does not interfere, only feels. Perhaps you can enter that state now. Close your eyes. Not like someone isolating from the world, but like someone turning inward into it. Breathe, but not as someone who controls the breath. Just notice, the air is coming, the air is going. It knows the way. It already connects you to the invisible, without effort, without promise, without control. Feel the point between one breath and the next. It is in that interval that spiral time lives. That's where the layers of reality touch. When nothing moves on the outside, but everything stirs within. Now imagine that you are inside a vibrational field, not outside but within. This field has no form, but it has presence. It is sensitive to your attention. It responds not to words, but to what silently pulses behind them. You are not trying anything. You are simply being. And by being, you are emitting. And by emitting, you are conversing with the universe. Not with sentences, but with vibration. Remain like this for a moment, observing what moves within when everything outside is still. Feel the small impulses, the spontaneous images, the memories that appear without being summoned. Don't try to interpret them. They don't ask for translation. They ask for recognition. The field is responding. You may notice something subtle, a sensation, a thought that comes as a whisper, a symbol that repeats without reason. These are the first languages of the invisible. They are echoes of the field trying to remind you of the connection that was never lost, only forgotten beneath the noise of the world. This practice is not an exercise. It is a ritual, a return to listening, a state where reality becomes thinner, more translucent, more permeable to synchronicities. You can live like this, not just in this moment, but every day. Not like someone who forces signs, but like someone who lives in a state of symbolic listening. When you're on the street, look at the details. When you hear something that touches you, feel what vibrated. When a number, a word, an image repeats, don't rush to understand. Allow the meaning to come fully, not as logic, but as vibrational recognition. Life is always speaking, always. But you need to listen with your whole body, with an open soul, with eyes that know everything can be a reflection. And when that state sets in, something changes. You begin to feel that you are not alone, that you never were, that everything that seemed random was, in fact, a precise dance between your vibration and the response of the field. The people who appear, the words that echo, the encounters that leave a mark. Everything begins to have symbolic density. Nothing is just what it seems. Everything carries layers. And then you become a living ritual, no longer needing to seek signs. You are the sign, the presence that activates, the vibration that allows, the consciousness that reveals. And by living this way, the days are no longer a sequence. They become portals. Time dissolves, hurry fades, anxiety calms, because now you do not live to find. You live to remember. Remember that you are already in contact, that you are already inside, that you already are. And in that state, the universe continues to respond to you. With each breath, with each silence, with each gaze that observes without judging, you are back in the field. And it, recognizing your presence, reveals the mirrors. There is a moment, almost imperceptible, when the world seems to bend slightly to your presence. There is no sound. There is no bright light. But there is a subtlety in the air, as if the very fabric of reality had been touched by something sacred, as if time had hesitated for a second, just to observe you. This moment cannot be explained. It happens. And when it happens, you know. Not because you understood, but because you recognized. Something inside you vibrates differently. An ancient memory awakens, and the feeling is one of return. A return without direction, without destination, but full of meaning. This is what synchronicities are in their essence, reminders of what lies beyond. Not beyond in space, but beyond in consciousness. They are subtle cracks in the logic of the world, through which eternity escapes. Small openings in the veil of the everyday, through which mystery touches you, not to convince you, but to remind you, you are not this name, you are not this age, you are not this story, you are something much vaster, more silent, older, something that observes all roles but is not bound to any, something that has been here before and returns, not to repeat, but to recognize. Thoth said that time is an eternal circle, but he also said that there is a point outside of time, a point where everything intersects. Past, present, future, all fold into the absolute now. And it is from this point that synchronicities are born. They don't come from the future nor from the past. They come from the center, from the silent point where everything vibrates in coherence with everything. You have been to this point before, in dreams that felt more real than the day, in encounters that seemed written before time, in moments when a tear fell, and with it, a weight you didn't even know you carried also dropped. These moments are not rare, they are deep. And depth is not measured in quantity, but in vibration. When you enter this field, even for an instant, the world reorganizes. Not because something outside changed, but because your perception became refined. And when perception changes, reality responds. Here is the key. It is not about attracting. It is about aligning. Aligning with what is true in you. Aligning with the rhythm of your spirit, not with the rhythm of the world. Aligning with the silence that observes, with the light that pulses, with the wisdom that does not shout. It only whispers. And when this alignment happens, the signs appear, not to take you somewhere, but to confirm that you are already where you needed to be. Because the soul's destination is never geographic, it is vibrational. Perhaps synchronicities are just that, silent confirmations that you are inhabiting your own essence. But for that, presence is needed. You must be inside your body as one who occupies a temple. You must be within the moment as one who crosses a portal. You must be inside life as one who listens to a sacred song that only plays when haste ceases. The world is not opaque. It is symbolic. Everything speaks. Everything vibrates. Everything responds. And you are the center of the mirror. Not in the sense of ego, but in the sense of creation. You are the point where spirit folds onto itself and observes itself. Where mystery becomes flesh. Where the invisible becomes flesh, time, gesture, choice, and in this center, everything is revealed, not because you deciphered the codes, but because you became the code. You did not come here to understand. You came to remember. And synchronicities are the constant reminder that nothing is separate, that everything recognizes you, that the universe observes you, through you. We have reached the end of our journey, but perhaps the end is just the beginning, revealed in another way. Because if something in you vibrated differently throughout this encounter, it was not by chance. It was resonance. It was recognition between ancient frequencies. You are not just living a life. You are remembering who you are through every mirror reality offers you. Synchronicities are not the answer. They are the calling, and you heard it. Now, silence returns to the center. But it is not the same as before. It is an inhabited silence, a silence that knows. If you have made it this far, write in the comments, "The mirror saw me, and I saw myself in the mirror." This phrase seals the field, and perhaps, upon reading it, others may awaken too.